a shero. You are a shero. Did you know that your life is a guiding light, helping many precious souls to fulfill their dreams in the midst of the darkness? You shine so brightly. Did you know that you lead the way to renewed hope from the prisons of despair and sorrow? You are a shero.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Episode 2. I'm super excited because I'm finally doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Yay.
Just going out and doing it. I was telling the church family that last year I was like, I don't want to do nothing. I'm tired because I felt like I was pregnant for 3 years, which I kind of was. But I was just really tired. So without further ado, welcome to the Just Rashatta Podcast. This is episode 2. I'm super excited. This is an informal talk between myself, Rashatta, your host, and some other of my celebrity friends. Y'all might not know who they are, but I do. I think they celebrities in my eyes. Okay, so today, once again, I got my girl Bernie B with me to talk a little bit about what are we talking about today?
We're talking about raising godly children in a busy world.
Yeah, what she said. So, because I totally forgot. So, raising godly children in a busy world. I wanted her to come on because one, we've been friends for like over 20-something years. But two, she brings a single mom's perspective, whereas I bring a married mom's perspective, and I think it's really good to have both of those perspectives represented, because a lot of times people say, well, you got a man, you got somebody, you got a partner, and so, but what about the person that doesn't have someone, a significant other or husband or a wife, and we're trying to do this thing so that we can, raise godly children. What does that look like? And so, because I know her, because I have seen her, I've helped her raise her child.
Girl, it's just one.
I'm the one with the children. So I'm the one with four. Because I've helped her in, raising my nephew, my godson, Jeffrey. I know without shadow of a doubt what her values are. I've seen her. I've, been there as a support from a friend, a sister, but only she can tell you like the things. I'm not there night and day all the time. So those are the things that she can share with the world on this platform to really give some insight from a godly single mother who is raising not only a child but a son. And then I have my 3 boys and a daughter whom I've raised with my husband. And so bringing that aspect of having a 2-parent household and a single parent household. So that's really what I wanted to talk about today, because I think it's very important for a lot of aspects. Our children are a legacy of who we are and what we represent, what we've done in our household. And a lot of times people say, oh, I trained them up in a certain way, but they decide to go left or they decide to go right. But I think a lot of times we as parents, we don't look at the things that we don't say, the things that we don't intentionally teach, the things. So you may have intentionally raised your child in a certain way, but they were picking up on, you lying on, your taxes. They were picking up on, you doing certain things that were
picking up on you gossiping on the phone.
Right. And so we don't think about those things, but those things are also influencing our children and helping them build a perception of how the world works and how their world works, and building their worldview and building who they are in character and in deed and all of those things. So I think those things are very important. So we have to be careful and mindful of even the unintentional things that we do, because they do play a huge part. I would say probably an even bigger part than we think in the development of our children. Probably bigger than the things that we actively teach our children, because a lot of times when we're actively teaching them something, a lot of times I found it goes in one ear and out the other. But it's those things that we didn't really point out to them or say, do this way. And then next thing you know, you look and you like, oh snap. I remember just a story, because y'all know I like to talk. So I remember the first time my daughter had to call the bank, because she had her own little checking account, right? And I can't remember exactly what it was that happened, but she was in high school, but she was going to college. And so she had her own little checking account. She had her own debit card and all that good stuff. And something happened where she needed to call the bank to find out like why a charge went through or something like that. And I'm the type of mom, I like my children to, sink or swim. So I'm like, call them, find out what's going on. That's your money, honey. And so she got on the phone and honey, let me tell y'all, she put on her professional voice and she handled her business. And I was like, oh, proud mommy moment. I think I posted it on Facebook too. But I was just so proud, because I'm sitting here looking at my 16-year-old daughter handle her business, and I know, and I'm thinking she's gonna, I don't know what I was thinking she was gonna do, but I felt like she was gonna sound like a 16-year-old. I don't know what that's supposed to sound like, but I didn't think she was gonna sound like a little young mini adult, on the phone dealing with adults about her money. And I just was like, wow. And I know that, and she sounded like I would sound on the phone. She was assertive, she was nice, but at the same time, y'all need to figure this out. And so I realized that, wow, that came from me without me saying, okay, when you get on the phone, you gotta sound like I couldn't purposely teach that. That came from her looking at me, watching how I do things, and then her imitating those things. And so it's an amazing thing, but it could also be a detriment if you are not putting the right example. It's very important to not only speak the right things, but be the right example for your children. Okay, so I'm stepping down off my soapbox, and now I'm inviting Bernie into the conversation.
No, I think leading by example is a great way to start. When we're talking about raising godly children, a lot of times I feel like as parents, even when we got to think about the fact that when we were younger, how we even responded to our own parents. Right. Of course, when you were younger, your parents talk to you, like, oh, another annoying conversation, because we've all thought it. But it's those things that you watch your parents do that makes the lasting impression in your life. Like watching what they do and how they act and how they respond to things. It's those moments that you remember more than a conversation sometimes. So definitely leading by example is a great way to start. And that goes for a married household or even a single parent household. You have to basically, the way your child see you behave, respond to situations, act about things, is the way they unconsciously act. I am also in education, so I see this in the classroom a lot of times. Even when I was the parent liaison at my school and I had to do staff capacity, I would teach the staff, if you get to know the parents of your student, you get to know your student. Because more than likely, if you're like, okay, my student always has an attitude, or my student acts this way when I ask them to do a question, if you see the way that parent responds, then you can understand your student more. And I think a lot of times we are more of talk to our child, or the whole, black mama thing. talk at them, or do what I say and not what I do. Well, parents, your child is going to do what you do.
Yeah.
They may not even remember what you said, but they are definitely going to do what you do. So we have to be mindful and even switch our own mindset to be that example, to not carry on that whole, well, just do what I say. No, you're modeling behavior for your children. It's the unspoken things. It's your body language. It's the attitude. It's even if you are supposed to get up at 12 and you like, let me hit the snooze button a couple of more times. Even those small behaviors, your children begin to mimic. They begin to, even if like they were early risers, and because you like to lay around, then your child also start laying around. Why? Because they see you do it. So that's definitely important, and I think a good way. That's
like I'll lead by example.
It is. That is like the best way to start, because before we start talking about other things that we can do, you have to be the example first. Like in the last podcast when we were talking about work-life balance, and I was talking about how having a schedule is important. I lead by example, so I have a morning routine. So now my son is like, hey mom, can you get me up in the morning? And now he has his own morning routine. But I started on my own because I just need to get my own self together and have time with God and mentally prepare myself to face the world outside that I was going to. But because he hears me up early in the morning, now he's like, hey, can you wake me up like an hour before so I can read and pray before I go to class. He goes to school at home, for those of you who may not know. But even in those things, before we talk about establishing a routine with your child, even in establishing a routine, even if we put up a schedule and say, okay, at 8 o'clock I want you up, I want you to wash your face, I want you to brush your teeth, but you still laying in the bed, then your child is going to be like, okay, there's no motivation in me to get up and do those things because you still chilling, so I want to chill too.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. The leading by example, it even carries over into how you face hardships.
Right.
Because I remember, like, my parents, I never saw them sweat when we faced hardships. And this was nothing that they said, hey, you know, this was not something that they sat down and purposely talked about.
Right.
But when I saw, hey, different things happening that, as you grow up and you get older, you be like, oh, some stuff got cut off, those types of things. It happens. My parents I never saw them sweat. They were so solution driven. And I grabbed that. So when my family hit hardships, I'm solution driven.
Right.
I don't sweat. I'd be like, okay, well, we need to figure out what we need to do. It's not we're sitting around and crying about it. It's very solution driven. My mind, it clicks in a second. It's not even a second thought about, okay, what I need to do. It's just like, okay, solution mode. We can do this. We can do this. And so even those little subtle things you pick up, and it's like, where did I get this from? How did I even, how did my brain even work? How do I feel? How did I get to the point to where I started feeling like this about these certain things? And I really started to really understand this when I started really looking at my children as a whole. And I'm talking to my husband, and we were I'm kind of diagnosing, like, there's certain things that we want from our children, and then I'm talking to him like, but we got to look at how we do things. We got to look at how we respond to things. And especially for him as the father, as the head, I was like, I can respond. Oops, am I messing up the mic? Because I keep touching. I can respond in a certain way, but there's a dynamic to the family structure that defaults to how does dad, the head, respond. And I've said a lot of times we don't even think about that. We're like, oh, they're with mom all day, mom's teaching her mom. But the way dad responds, the way they see the man in their life responds, they're gonna lean towards that even more so than the person that's with them all the time. Even more, and I guess that's just the way God designed it, because the man is the head of the household. But I look at my children, and mind you, my husband's out for the most part. I was the one that was, especially in the formative years, taking care of them, because I decided to stay at home with them. I decided to make sure that they had a mom with them at home. I took jobs that would allow me to be at home if I did take a job, up until they were at a certain age. And so, I'm like, well, I'm the one. So I look at sometimes like, why they not easy going? Why they not happy go lucky like me? Like, look at my husband. Like, they took after their dad anyway. Because my husband's the opposite. My husband is serious. He's like, he likes things to work properly. And my kids are like that. They get frustrated with electronics when stuff doesn't work properly. And I just be like, man, this piece of junk. I'll come back to that. I'm not gonna keep trying to figure it out. I'm just be like, okay, it's broken. I need to either buy a new one or get it fixed. But I'm not gonna keep sitting up here trying to figure it out and make myself have my blood pressure going through the roof. But they gonna try to fix it. It's supposed to work like this. It's saying it's supposed to work like this. Why isn't it working? And I'm like, they didn't see me doing that, but they saw my husband do it. The times that, when he was around, when he was, in their presence, they saw him respond that way. And I was telling them, I was like, they saw you respond like that. They picked that up from you, even though I was the one that was there.
Right. But
that also has to be, and this is like small stuff. Like, my husband is, when it comes to like being the stand-up, if I wanted my sons to mimic any man, it would be my husband. But it's the small things too, like in our personalities, that they're picking up on. And I think I talked a little bit about this in the last episode, that they pick up on and we don't even realize it. So we got to make sure that we're exemplifying and doing that self-check to be, in every possible way, the example that we want for our children to be when they step out into the world, because they're watching. I know it's like cliche, your children are watching, but they really are.
They really are.
They're watching, they're learning from the things that you're doing, more so than the things that you're actually speaking to them. Definitely talk to them, definitely speak the good things, but at the same time, know that they're also watching you.
Right. Another thing I just want to, just as a reminder, we talked about this in the last podcast, in the last episode, but I think for parents, a lot of times, especially, like for me, I have older parents. Like, my mom was in her 40s when she had me. So I grew up with most of my siblings grown. There's a 13-year age gap between my brother and I. And so a lot of times when you're growing up with your older parents or your old school parents, the by the book, if we're going to the store, don't ask for nothing, the ones that can give you a look and let me straight up fly right, that I tend to have this stigma of, this is how I want my child to be. So sometimes as parents, we kind of forecast what we want our children to be onto them, and not actually look at our children as individual people. So, like, for example, I am very logical and I'm a planner. I have a son who is analytical. So while things just may make sense to me, he analyzes every situation, every outcome. He throws in 6 different variables, and then he's going to weigh those variables, outcomes, pros and cons. And I'm looking at him like, it just makes sense. But for him, it doesn't. And so I had to learn, I think all parents have to get to this point where we have to learn our children as an individual. Yes, they're always watching us, but at the same time, the things that happen in your life and your childhood don't project that onto your child. Don't, okay, I want my child to be a doctor, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to make sure. If that's not what your child is interested in, and this is going to lead me to just having a conversation. I think a lot of times as parents, we don't even feel confident in ourselves, or even in raising our children, to have a conversation. Open up questions. Like, I talk to my son all the time. He's extremely creative, so he likes graphic design and drawing and coding. And at one point, he wanted to take guitar lessons, and his godson gave him a guitar. I looked at him and I was like, "Look, let's have a heart to heart, okay? Because it's just your mama. She worked hard for her money. Unless you are about to be 100% committed to this musical instrument." Let me know now. Because I'm like, I'm not trying to waste money in something that he doesn't want to do. Yes, I would love for him to play a music instrument. Why? Because I did. I played the violin, but I was committed to my craft. But at the same time, sometimes our children have fleeting thoughts, or we have thoughts of what we want them to be, and we push them there, but that's not what they want to do. So we also have to make sure that while we're leading by example, and they're watching us and they're watching how we respond to things, that we actually consider them, consider what they like to do, consider their thoughts, answer their questions. Like, because I told you so. I know we've all heard it over and over again, because I told you so, but a lot of times that's not flying, because we're raising well-rounded, godly children. And in raising well-rounded, godly children, they're going to have to be able to articulate their beliefs. They're going to have to be able to stand firm on God's word. And if you don't foster that environment at home, or if you don't give them a safe place to grow in that, they're going to have a hard time articulating what they need, even in the outside world, even when talking to other adults. Like, I have a lot of people like, your son is so articulate, because I allow him to express. You need to explain to me why you believe what you believe. Like, yes, we're Christians. Yes, we have our beliefs. Yes, we have our foundations, but my son can tell you from his point of view those sound foundations. It's not like I believe because my mom believed. Exactly. And your children do the same thing. It's because they have a great understanding. And so you want to be able to actually foster that too. And that leads me to another thing. Having like-minded people around you as a support system. She mentioned earlier she's been a support. Her husband has been a support. Even my god babies have been a support in our church. But a lot of times we are around people who are toxic and negative. And so they influence how we parent. And you need to find your community. Find your local assembly. Find your people who are going to be like, oh, you want to do it this way? All right, then let's roll this way. It was fun. I was just thinking about the term godparent the other day. I don't know, weird. Sometimes it happens. And, I know why. Because somebody had assigned somebody famous had given someone the role as godparent to their child. And I'm like, a lot of times we throw around this term godparent, not realizing that that's the person who you're saying is going to step in and continue to raise my child in the values that I have. Right. And so I was thinking about that thing, especially because as Christians, we need to make sure that we have a community of people, a community of believers who believe the same thing. Because if something happens to me, I have no doubt that what I've already established will continue to be fed into my son, and even more. But you need to make sure that you actually have that community and that you have that influence around your child, which is, I think, for us, one of the main reasons why our children are no longer in public school. Not saying, I am saying there's something wrong with the public school system. Yes, it is definitely something wrong with the public school system. Okay, even
especially nowadays.
Even as a teacher in the public school system, there is something wrong with the public school system. So even in that, realizing who your children are around, because not only are you examples with your children and raising your children, think about their friends, who they're hanging around with, their environment. That also influences them, because even if they're not getting it from your house, if they're getting it from friends at school, then that's also an influence, and that's also going to play a part in your child's behavior, your child's action, your child's response. So yes, we've talked about you being an example, but you also have to examine. And I think especially as a single parent, because you are doing so much by yourself, that you really have to rely on other people to assist and help you. But you have to be mindful that all help is not good help, okay? Mm-hmm. I'm telling you right now, all help is not good help. Some help is hurtful and harmful to your child. So you have to be very, very careful when you're looking at those things.
Amen. Well, Brian, you said a mouthful. I want to go back to what you were talking about, the communication with your children and really talking about, what it is that motivates them, what they like, and all of that good stuff, because that's really important. I made it a point to really treat my children like humans first and respecting them as human beings. They have minds of their own. Right. They have feelings of their own. They have everything that we have as adults, but as children with less vocabulary. That's what I like to say. They have
that's a good way to
their vocabulary is limited, whereas ours is not. So a lot of times behaviors and how they express themselves are based upon the fact that they don't have the ability to articulate what they want to say, but they're trying to say something. So even as little as one, we laugh all the time because Josiah,
our little firecracker,
he chooses violence almost every time his big brother kisses him. But and he be want to throw it, slap him get off of me, but that is his limited way of communicating. What he really want to say is, it ain't the time to kiss me. Wait till I initiate it.
Right.
Don't just come and grab the kiss, bruh. But he don't have a vocabulary to say all that. So what he do? Smack. He either backhand or forehand, We've calmed him down, but even in us telling him, no, don't hit, no, that's not nice, it still wells up in him, and all he does is cure the symptom.
Right.
And that is smack. So now he when his brother sneaks a kiss, he ooh, but I don't want to get in trouble. But he still can't express the fact that I don't like that, or it's not the time for me right now.
Right.
And so I've made it a real point to really look at and treat my children I know if I've been gone all day, out, running around, out and about, doing stuff, 9 times out of 10, how would I feel if I needed to come and the kitchen looked like it's blown up? I ain't gonna be feeling like doing that. Right. So, sometimes when it comes to my kids, I'll be like, okay, just wipe off the counters, rinse out the dishes, leave them soaking in, some soapy water, and then come back and wake up early and do it. These are the considerations as human beings that we have to have for our children, because they are human.
Right.
And a lot of times them responding in certain ways is because they are human, and we're taking it personal, oh, you got an attitude. Well, it's not really an attitude. It's just like we would be dang, you put more work on me, I'm tired.
Right.
But again, they have limited vocabulary, so they're feeling these things the same way we would feel these things. They just don't have the vocabulary to express it. So I'm very much so the advocate for kids or children being treated as human beings first, not just little servants that we have, because the Bible says they're a gift. So whereas we want to teach them responsibility by having responsibility around the house, don't let that responsibility around the house turn into slave work or slave labor, throughout the day. I know my son Josh, and this is only because he's a boy, I know my son Josh be like, I need to change my name because they call me all the time. And I am very conscious of that. I'm conscious of the fact that, these last 4 months for him have been like, Josh, can you do Josh? Because I've been recovering. He's been helping with his baby brother, his baby brother. He's been helping in all these capacities. And so, I try to, like, when he says, Mom, can I get on scratch? Mom, can I do this? I try to be like, okay, yes, go ahead. Give you some time. Give you some space to, like, do your thing, because you've been holding it down, bro. You know what I'm saying? You've been really holding it down. And so being mindful of those things. And also, now that I'm recovering, not just still relying on him, but also, helping him out and showing him, like, okay, Mommy's recovering now. Things ain't gonna always be like this. And so we really have to be mindful of our children and just who they are, and the fact that they're not us. I was telling one of the young ladies in our church, when we were talking about, parenting, and letting her know, like, your parents' way of parenting was good enough for you.
Right.
But you have to figure out what kind of parent your children need you to be for them, to bring out the best in them, because your children aren't you.
Correct.
So you can't parent the same way your parents. There are some things that you can take away, but all of that has to come under the scrutiny of, how does my child need to be parented? That may look similar to how your parents parented you, and it may look totally different, because again, you're dealing with a totally different person. And so we have to understand that, and even in becoming a different parent than your parent for the sake of your children, you have to become a different parent per child.
Right.
The way I parented Tiana is not the way I parent Josh, Josiah, and definitely not Jeremiah, but his little smiley self. And he's just 4 months, but he's like, he's the sunshine of the group. He throw that big old smile on you, and you be like, oh, and I be like, I'm a dream. Don't let up until him, the smiles didn't, affect me, and I'm starting to feel like they gonna affect me. He gonna throw that smile on me, and I'll be like, oh, okay, go ahead, Jeremiah. It's okay, baby. And he the baby too. And I'll be like, Softy the snowman up in here.
I think that's, like, you made some really, really good points, and especially us, realize the type of parent we need to be for our children. But I think I want to back it up a step. Before we even talk about raising children or raising godly children, we have to be humble enough as parents to renew our minds and really be humble enough to say, okay, my parents did the best they could do for me, but now I have to be humble enough to say, okay, Lord, this is the child you have given me. How do you want me to raise this child? Because a lot of times too, it's not the child, it's the parents. And because at times as parents, we can get stuck in doing something because mama did it, grandmama did it, G-mama did. Like, it has gone back generations of this is how it's been done, and no one has stopped to say, well, why did they do it back this? It's almost like the thing with the pan, and the lady cutting off the ends of the ham for her pan. And so for generations, they were cutting off the ends of the ham, and it was simply because the ham wouldn't fit her pan. So she was cutting off the ends to make the ham fit, but everybody else had big pans and bigger pans, but no one said, hey, great grandmother, why are you cutting off the ends? You just continue the pattern. You continue like the curse or whatever. Like, you continue that thing without realizing or even thinking about why it occurred. It's almost like even when we're reading scripture and we're studying the Bible, we have to look at the context. We have to look at the culture and the times and what was going on at that moment. We have to do the same thing when we look at family traditions. I'm going to use the word traditions. Those things that we have done over and over again for generations as a family, even as it pertains to raising our children, what's the reasoning behind it?
Right.
Why? And then even if the reasoning is a good reason, does this work for me? And
Right.
does this work for my family? Does this work for my child?
Right.
Because everything that works for one person may not work for them. Like you said, they're individuals. So the same way, even you have to almost think like the way you would teach children. Like I have about 7 children in my classroom. Each one of them have a different personality. What I do with one child and get one response, it will crush another child.
Right.
And so we have to look at them. I think the major thing is resetting our mindsets to say, number one, they are individual children.
Exactly.
They are individuals. We are not raising just a child because you're my child and I had you and because I said so and because
clones.
I brought you into this world and I can take you out this world. Nah, it's time out for that, and it's really time to look at our children as individuals, because once they leave us, once that arrow leaves the bow, it has to be able to stand on its own.
Right.
And because the bow told me to, and
And
because the bow said so, it's not going to work. And I think I know for myself personally, you had this revelation a long time ago. It took me a moment to get there. Because I was like, what? No, you're a child. And I said it, so why are we going back and forth? I'm not going back and forth with you.
We used to be
But-
like, Bernie, calm down.
Right? They did. Because I was like, no. And that's because, again.
But that goes back to
Right.
again. That goes back to my like hippie motherhood
Right. And so
thing.
we were raised in 2 different environments, and we, it was 2 different standards. Like my son is in high school. This is his freshman year. This is his 2nd semester. Well, hello chickens. How
Sorry,
are
my chicken's
y'all?
trying to get into this
They-
podcast.
And it goes back to him having medical issues and having to have surgery his first semester and literally missing a month and a half of school at the very beginning of the school year. And so I told him, I'm like, hey, I'm proud of you just for completing this first semester. Like, I don't care if it's all A's, I don't care if it's B's, I don't care as long as you pass, okay? Because you've had to endure a lot. Now, where I have always had medical issues and pushed through and still came up on top, that's not he doesn't have the same drive and determination that I have. He gets frustrated when things don't make sense. Like I said, he's analytical. I'm logical. If you tell me 2 + 2 is 4, I'm like, okay, 2 + 2 is 4. Let's keep it moving. That's what it is. My son is going to be like, well, why is 2 + 2 is 4? So if I put a 3 and a 1, do I still eat 4? Well, that's still not 2 +. Like, he's going to really, but that's like the person he is. He's really going to go into depth about why a thing is instead of just because it makes sense to me and it's logical to me. So what works for me, I have to realize will not work for him. So for me to say, son, just pass your classes. Now he came out with B's and C's. So I'm like, son, just pass your class. I'm not putting the pressure. I had the pressure as a child that I need to bring home all A's. If I brought home some B's, it was going to be some questions why they was B's. I'm not putting that same pressure on my child because he's totally different from the person that I am.
Exactly. And that, again, that just goes back to, like you said, we have to humble ourselves in understanding and saying, hey, Lord, how do you want me to take care of this gift that you've given me? And really seeking his face, and not that, and it's not a snub to our parents and how they raised us, or to say that our parents raised us wrong or did anything wrong, because we wouldn't be who we are if they didn't raise us the way that they raised us. That was for us, though. And so we now have these other individuals that God is raising up to do whatever he has purposed them to do. And so we got to go back to the source and say, okay, what do we need to do, Lord? Help me. What do we need to do with this gift to make it bear fruit?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because God is all about fruit. He's all about bearing fruit. He's all about reproduction. And so what do we need to do with this gift so that it bears fruit, it reproduces itself, and that it is whatever it is that you purposed it to be? And so we have to, like you said, humble ourselves and ask the Lord, pretend like we don't know anything.
Right.
And the things that we do know, based upon what our parents have instilled in us and given us, it still comes up under what is it? Do we need to do this? Continue in this? And then for me, for a wife, I have to also add in, what is it that the Lord has called my husband to oversee? Right. And what is it that he's called his family to be? And I have to add that in there as well, because this is his legacy. This is his family unit. When I left my mom and my dad's house, I came into we created this whole nother family unit. And I'm not my mama, and my husband's not my dad. So now we got us in this family unit, right, with this offspring. And God has ordained us to live out something with a purpose on the earth. He gave us these children for a purpose on the earth. And so now we got to seek him to see, okay, what are you doing with us, Lord? And again, it's not a snub to our parents. It's just really focusing in on what is it that God has purpose for us and living out that purpose. Leaving nothing in the dash. Right. Undone. You know, making sure that we try to live up to everything that God purposed us to live up to in the dash. And so it's very important that's like the foundation of raising godly children. One, you got to be godly. Yes. Hello, as the example. And then you want to make sure that you are seeking the Lord on what he wants you to do with the children that he's given you. And that again is whether you have a household. It's just more to the story when you have it's you and your spouse. It's more to deal with, because you and your spouse have to come together and be on one accord on how we gonna guide these children together. And so these are all really good things. What we got next on our list?
I think we actually covered.
Do we cover everything? We always do that.
What we do.
So yeah, choose positive influence. Yeah, we talked about that. Encourage questions. We talked about that. You talked a little bit about establishing a routine. I'm all about routines. I love routines. I think the Lord for this particular season of my life has helped me in not being so stern about routines, because I was very routine oriented. But with having two little ones, having to recover from a surgery, having two little ones back to back, it's been really hard for a routine, because I'm very, wake up at 6, 15 minutes, right. And that just doesn't happen when you have two little ones at the same time. As much as I would love to have, and he's helping me be okay with that. And I think it's also mainly because, other women and being able to kind of relate to other women, mm-hmm. and being able to help them through that. He has been helping me deal and cope with not being able to have a routine. I am very that's like very important to me, being productive. Like everything has to have its little space. Every minute has to have its little space for me. And so I have probably within the last year been really struggling to be okay with the fact that every minute does not have its place. And going with the flow. Like if Josiah wants to look at my face and kiss me for 20 minutes, not being like, okay, son, you got to go sit down somewhere because mommy's got to be, and being okay with giving him what he needs. He wants mommy time, and he wants to kiss me all day long. and been okay with that, you know, and knowing that not only am I being productive because I'm giving my son the attention that he needs, the attention that he craves and desires from his mom, because every day is not like that. Every 20 minutes is not like that. And what is 20 minutes at 1, or what is 20 minutes at 2 years old, when he's only going to be 1 for a little short period of time. Right. He's only going to be little like this for a short period of time. The majority of his life will be out of my arms. The majority of his life will be him doing his own thing, probably not even thinking about, you know, laying up under me like that, you know. What is 20 minutes to give him? And so that's what the Lord has been really making me okay with. Like, these little ones, they're only going to be like this for a short period of time. It is okay to give them the time and the attention that they need. You don't need to be productive. And, you know, I think that's also a reason why in this season the Lord has my husband say, no work outside the house. No, because I had a very good support system at my job outside the house where I could bring all the children, we all packing up, going to work. But at the same time, I was packing up, going to work, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're with me, but I'm not giving them all the attention that I'm giving them right now. And so I think that's also a reason why, you know, the Lord placed on my husband's heart, like, it's time for you to just come on home and you do work that you can do from home. You build a business, build a family business that you can build from home so that you are more accessible and more of an influence to our children at home, in the home environment, and they're getting all of that. And that was something that Tiana was able to do, but she was able, you know, she was like one child, so she was able to just go. We packed Tiana up. She was going everywhere. I mean, she used to be at my job, sleeping under my desk like a little kitten. You know, and packing up. But I'm always, those are also things like, ladies, gentlemen, just really being mindful of your children and the fact that, you know, even if you do have to go to work, find support systems and jobs and finding, you know, jobs that allow you to be creative to cater to your children.
Yes. And
building that camaraderie and having, you know, and praying and asking the Lord for favor with the people that you're working with, because I've been able to either my children stay at home with my husband because he worked nights, or I've been able to take them with me. And that is because the Lord, one, understood the values that we had, and we prayed and asked the Lord for favor. We prayed and asked the Lord to help us do these things that He's placed in our heart to do, so that we are the main influence to our children. And He was faithful in helping us do that. And so, you know, that leads us to next week's topic. But
before we go
our
there,
faith, but you know, that's next week. So we'll get into that. Okay.
Before we go there, but even on the flip side, as a single mother, I was afforded the same opportunity. When I had to go to work, my son, there's a thing, almost like a tradition in our family where the formative years, they do not like children, especially when they're babies, to go to daycares. So I was fortunate to have my mother, as well as my aunt, who are like retired educators and social workers, to actually be home with my son even when I had to, you know, start work when he was 2. I had to go back to work. But like, that's why I said having a support system and having people around you that you can really trust your children with, and having people around you that share the same values, because you don't want to just have to throw your child out to the wolves per se, but just having someone with the same values, even if it's just your local body assembly, even if it's your small circle of friends, and you guys gonna have to figure out, hey, all of us have children who gonna stay. Can two of us work more, have one to stay, and we pay you to watch the children? Figure it out. It is possible. It can happen. And like you said, just praying, asking God for that favor, and even beyond favor, asking God for direction. Because even as a single parent, yes, it's just you, but you still have God, so you're not alone. Exactly. Ask God for that direction. Ask God, where can my child go, or who can my child be around, or even just having faith to just, okay, God, we're gonna have to work this out. But like you said, you had either they were at home with you or you had a job. For me, I had my mom who retired actually when I gave birth. My mom was working up until the point I had my son, and like, even though my pregnancy, she was supposed to be partially retired, but she was still working full work weeks. I didn't think that lady was ever gonna leave her job. But after I had my son, she was like, all right, I'm retired for real now. Like, so I was grateful for that, because I had someone, I had support from my mom and from my aunts who had already retired. They had their grandchildren. I would call my mom sometimes, check on my son, and they're like out at the park, and they're in the restaurants. Like, he has a very distinct palate and taste in food and stuff, and teaching etiquette at the restaurant, because this is the things they've done. And I'm thankful that I had that support system in my mom and even my sister and my aunt. So know that God will give you everything you need at the right time. So you don't have to worry about lacking anything. You just have to put your faith and trust in God and praying, and whatever He tells you to do it, because He will add those things for you. He will make sure that your child has everything everything they need, and you have everything you need as well.
Amen. So I want to double back, because the family time, I want to emphasize the family time, because that's also important. We have the demands that come with working at a job, ministry for us, and also all the other responsibilities that we may have, like, my husband not just being a pastor, but, traveling and singing at one point, all of these different things pull on you. And a lot of times, because of those demands, a lot of times we feel like those things, and I think we talked about this last week, we feel like those things are more important,
right.
Because they pay the bills, or it's about helping someone, reach their potential in God, or saving a soul, and we feel like those things are more important than the nucleus of the family structure that we have. And so sometimes we'll put off time with our nucleus to do those things. But I want to say it's very, very important to spend time. It's so funny. My 11-year-old son, who's Josh, every chance he gets, when there's nobody else around, I always say he's my date night son. Because when there's no one else around, the very first thing he asks for, hey mom, can we watch a movie together? That is his all-time favorite thing, is watch a movie. First thing in the morning, as soon as my husband hits that door and leaves, he's sliding into bed with me to hang out. And I mean, now he got his little baby brothers in the mix too, but that used to be his thing. And, just taking that time, I could, spring up and be like, oh, we got to get this, da-da-da-da. But I try, even though he be wanting to watch, everybody that knows Josh knows he loves watching movies with talking animals.
Yes.
Nobody wants to watch those. But I have to watch those with him. I take the time when we have our movie nights together. I take the time to watch Joshua movies, his animal, because those times are important to our children. It's not. It doesn't have to be time spent where you're spending a lot of money, or time spent where it's outside of the house. Just little stuff like that. My daughter and I, we used to watch movies together. We used to play games together. Now sometimes we share videos that we're scrolling. That's our thing. Sometimes we're in the same room sending each other messages on social media. But these things are things that bring about connection outside of just doing something or just doing work. It brings about a connection that brings about memories and fondness of memories of being at home or being with mom or being with dad, that go beyond spending time going out to the movies or going. My fondest memories of hanging with my parents is not the times where they took us to Tennessee or took us to, all of these different places. It was times at the house where we all sat down at the dinner table and my mom, would make food and, thinking about how my dad used to drink a 2-liter bottle of Dr. Pepper, and my mom always had Jiffy cornbread, and at the end of the meal we had a Jiffy blueberry muffin, and, those are the things that bring back the fondest of memories. Right. Not necessarily the stuff, going to the movies, those were good too. Going to the mall and hanging out, those things were nice, but it was the times that we didn't spend necessarily any money. It was the times where, I'm just laying watching Saturday morning cartoons on my mom's lap. Those were the times that I remember the fondest, even with my grandmother, us watching wrestling together and Sally Jesse Raphael at night before going to bed, and that's when what's his name, Geraldo used to come on at night. We weren't doing nothing special, but those are the things that I remember, and these were like from the smallest of. I was so small back during those times when we were doing this, but these are the fondest of my memories of being with my family, and so spending that time, making sure that you're carving out intentional time for you, because we can get caught up in the hustle and bustle, right? But making sure that we're spending that intentional time, putting your phone away. I started not pulling out my phone first thing in the morning. I spend the mornings with my children, talking goo goo gaga with Jeremiah's. Josiah busts and karate chop his way into the door, into the room, and talking with him and kissing on him and hugging on him and all those good things, and just absorbing and just showing love and care and doing all these things with the kids without having my phone, without scrolling or trying to, read something. Because I want to cherish these moments, but more so I want them to cherish these moments. I want them to know that when they're in my presence, that they are important. Right. And if Josiah is talking baby talk to me, that his baby talk is important to me. And as he continues to grow, the things that he has to say, that he wants to say to me, are important. And so it's very important to spend that time. And it doesn't have to be a long period of time, as long as it's consistent, because it's going to be the consistency that stands out, not, the big hoopla. Oh, we took them on a family vacation. They may or may not remember it, but it's going to be that consistent day-to-day life of them knowing that you were actually spending time, and they know that you were focused on them in that time. Those are the times that's going to really matter to them and really make an impact on them.
I think we mentioned this in the last episode as well, to not think about spending time with your child or children as a task. Like, let me check this off. Because as we mentioned earlier in this podcast, even your body language, your unintentional thoughts come across to your children, and they're going to mimic that. So you don't want to make it feel like it's a chore, something you have to take or check off, but to naturally do something. Sometimes I am working on lesson plans or getting some things together for my classroom, and my son is literally just next to me. And I'm like, you need something? Nope. And he'll just lay next to me, and I'm like, all right, you good? He's like, yep. I mean, I'll keep going, but he just wanted to come and be in my presence and be around me while I was working. And I'm like, and it could be something as small as that, you know, your child is wanting from you. It could be, hey, Mom, I drew a picture, and it's not like, oh, baby, that's cute, but actually take time. Like, my son and I, we draw together. I'm not the best artist, but if I didn't, that gift skipped me. But just taking those times and those moments and making them not feel like it's a chore or a task or something else on your to-do list that you have to get done. But just realizing that, again, humble yourself as a parent. Asking God, how do you want me to raise this gift you have given me? Realizing exactly what your child needs. You may have a child that actually needs more attention and more time than your other child. Being able to give your children exactly what they need and not feeling like it's a task or daunting or nothing on my plate. No, they are the priority. Everything else, you can get to it when you get to it, but your children, your family, your time with God, those are the things that are priorities.
Yeah. I think I remember reading something and said your job won't remember the long nights that you spent working on the project, but your children will. And that's for anything that we do outside the house. Like, your children are going to remember when you're not there. They're going to remember the times that you spent spending it with them.
Right.
They remember those times. They're going to remember the time that they wish they could have spent time with you, but you were spending it somewhere else.
Right.
And while, you know, yes, we have to work. Yes, those things are very important and they have to take priority, but they are not more important than the time, especially in the formative years. You know, when they grow, they're going to be needing to do their own thing as well, even though for some reason, my 22-year-old does not think that she still think that she need to be in my bed too. No, but I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. But there's going to come a time, like my boys, they're going to get families of their own. They're not going to be coming and, laying across mom. They're going to have wives of their own, And at some point, my daughter is going to also get a husband. And she's going to be wanting to, cuddle up to her husband. And so there's going to come a time where that is no longer the priority for them. That's no longer needed. Them calling and talking to you on the phone or getting advice is going to be what they need. But when they are, growing up, it's going to be time spent in building a foundation as to whether or not they come to you when they need advice. It builds a foundation that determines whether or not they feel comfortable, telling you what's going on in their life.
Right.
And I said it last time, it's going to be whether they want to hurry up and get out the house.
What's that?
When they turn grown, or I'm going to just chill and still be a child and build my, build my net worth up before I step out the house.
Right, right.
That's going to be the deciding factor, like how you dealt with them as they were growing up. It weighs heavily, like, are they going to be like trying to escape, or are they going to really try and, be there and feel comfortable with the transition of them becoming an adult and them taking baby steps into adulthood, right, or they're going to be running into adulthood. And I really feel like the upbringing determines whether your children run and don't look back, or if they take baby steps. Because I'm not putting my children out the house just because they turn 18. I want them to establish, and I believe my husband feels the same way. I've heard him talk about it. I want them to establish themselves, and we build the foundation for them to launch from. We give them a launching pad into adulthood, and not a kick over the cliff into adulthood because of how we've treated them in the 18 years that they grow up in our house. And so having that in the forefront of your mind, like, how are your children thinking about, because again, they're little human beings and a lot of times, and I think parents, we lack empathy in that aspect, where we don't put ourselves in our children's position and state, like, how would I feel if somebody over me treated me like this? And I do that quite a bit, with my children and how I respond to them. That's been a way that I've parented throughout the years, is, really being empathetic to the plight of my children. That doesn't necessarily mean that I don't discipline them, but at the same time, it's not always a disciplinary thing. It doesn't always have to be, a lot of times discipline is needed because you've already had the teaching moments. You've already had the teaching talk. So now discipline is needed so they can understand how serious it is. Like, they know, okay, we talked about this, but for some reason you didn't feel like fat meat was greasy, so let me show you fat meat is greasy. But my initial is to have the teaching moments so that they understand, not just don't do this, or that's not right, or why are you thinking this way, but having a clear understanding of, this is not beneficial for you. To do things like this causes this. Whether it is, if you touch the fire, you're going to get burned. It's not beneficial for you to touch the fire. Because if you get burned, then you're going to get blisters. You're going to get this. The consequences could be very bad. Now, if you keep going over there, I'm going to have to show you before you get the blisters, because I don't want you to have to get the consequence. And that's what happens in life. When we're teaching them about their character and certain things, like, telling lies and being, people who are, have integrity and stuff like that. We don't just spank them because they lied to us. We spank them because we want them to understand and know that lying is not an integrative thing. You don't want to be known as a liar. And you have to understand there's consequences that come. And if you wait for life to teach you a consequence about being a liar, you could end up in jail. Or dead, right? Or there. So I teach them so that they don't have to feel the full brunt of the consequence of life. They can feel my consequence, which, thankfully, for the most part, has worked. What do you say, Tiana?
I want to go back to the mindset behind it, because I know a lot of times with parents, it's going to be breaking down that old mindset of what you experienced as a child and what you're doing currently now. If you do not foster this nurturing environment at home, the streets definitely will. And we can't live in a world and then be naive in thinking that because you would react a certain way to a situation means that your child will react the same way to that situation, because that's just not true. So you have to make sure that you are being vigilant. Sorry, y'all, us to be words today.
We can't talk.
Vigilant, even with your children, not only about the environment and things, but and who they're hanging around, but how you make an environment and create an environment and an open door for them to express themselves, for them to talk to you as their parent.
Right.
Because if you don't, they're going to find somebody who will, or whether it's the video games and they're learning from that, or it's a chat somewhere, they're talking to somebody across the world, God knows who. And
these days.
right, these really God knows who. And they're going to start to be that influence and be that voice more than yours for your children. So you want to make sure that we don't carry our old mindsets and carry the mindsets of grandma and grandpa and great grandma and grandpa, either your mother and the father, because again, those things work for you as a child, but that doesn't mean that it necessarily will work for your child or children that you're raising now.
Right. I like that. That's definitely a good takeaway. Yeah. Well, I think I'm tapped out on the subject. What about you, Brian?
I think I'm good. As always, if you have questions, make sure that you guys let us know. We love to hear from you. So if you have thoughts, comments, or anything like that, leave us a comment, leave us a thought, leave us questions, and we'll make sure that we get back to you and answer those questions as well.
Absolutely. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Just Rashatta. Well, I won't say all social media platforms. I would say Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Because y'all know all of these social medias is just too much, okay? It's just too much. And I'm not going to be posting like that. Maybe when I get a team. Nah, I'm probably not going to get no team because that's a waste of money. Y'all just follow me on them things right there, okay?
And you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at your girl Bernie B.
There you have it. Oh, listen, I know we got some things in the making.
Oh, yes.
So my husband created this beautiful, beautiful song. It is the song that is actually the theme song for my podcast, Shiro by Timothy Titus. It's Shiro by Titus, because that's what it is on Spotify and all the other music outlets. You can go and download it, stream it, all of that great stuff. But because of that song, I decided to come up with a conference called the Gathering of Shiros. And that is a place for women who are virtuous women to come together, to be inspired, to be empowered, to get resources. So many times we go to conferences and, there's a lot of shouting, there's a lot of praying and, preaching and teaching. And those things are great. But I also wanted to encompass real resources. I wanted to create a conference that women could come to get all those things, but also leave with an actual plan. Whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, you actually leave with resources and, an actual to-do list to accomplish those things. So we take a small group of women. It's not a whole bunch of women, because we want to be able to put our hands on you and really listen to the things that God has placed on your heart to accomplish, and actually give you practical ways to accomplish that, so that when you leave the conference, you can actually go out and do what you believe God has called you to do, and make it in such a way where you can get those resources. And I'm talking, not resources where you got to pay for an additional $2,500.
No.
You can. No, I'm talking about resources that are free to almost free. Like resources that you can get or that you can tap into that will allow you to accomplish what God has called you to do at minimum cost type of thing. So that is what the Gathering She Rose is about. It's going to be in 2024 in October. Well, we're in 2024 now. So 2024 October, dates are coming out. You know the dates that we said?
Yes, I do have the dates.
And then tell them what the theme is for this year.
I definitely will. So the dates for this year is October 10th through the 12th. And our theme is Embrace, Empower, Elevates.
So there you have it. More information will be coming soon on all those good things. We'll probably put up a landing page to, kind of encapsulate and capture everything so that you can kind of read about the event. Show you some pictures from the previous one that we had. We took some time off. But we're going to, do it again this year. So I'm really looking forward to that. So yeah, shout out to Royalty Media Productions. My team here, they're great. I love it. We're getting things done. Be on the lookout for
Mindful Moments with Bernie B.
There you go. She will be starting her podcast as well. Tell them a little bit about what.
So, Mindful Moments with Bernie B is just pretty much my thoughts and how God has elevated me and molded and shaped me throughout my life. So we'll be talking about modesty. We'll be talking about faith. We'll be talking about embracing those things in the scripture that God has called women to be. And basically transforming our mindset from being this powerful, independent woman who can do everything and actually being the weaker vessel that God has called us to be. And what it looks like now today doesn't mean that you're weak as a person, but how we take on those attributes of God, how we take on those attributes that God has described that we should be as women, and how do we live out those things today.
Amen. So yeah, there you have it. So we're doing some great things this year moving forward. Like I said earlier, leaving no purpose untouched in the dash, so we're really moving forward and trying to make sure that we impact the kingdom as much as possible with the knowledge and experience that God has given us, especially being so long in ministry. So I'm thankful to my homie here. She'll be back for the next one, and then y'all get to see my boo. He gonna be on there. He don't know it yet, but he gonna be on there. I'm gonna have him come on to talk about a topic with me, so I'm excited about that. And we're gonna have some more people as well. Some people from my church, my daughter. I might even bring Josh on here to talk a little bit. And so yeah, I'm excited. So y'all come along with the ride. The Just Rashatta Podcast. As you can see, it's not just me, but it's all coming from my mind. So but I like to do stuff with my family and the people that I love. So you're gonna get a glimpse into those people and get to know some of those people that have been behind the scenes with me for others, working with others. My daughter, my bestie right here, we've been in the business of working, to help other people make their dreams come true for a long time. And God has graced us to be able to help them accomplish those things. And so now we are just focusing in on the things that He has us to do individually, and bringing our expertise together to launch the things that He has called us to do. So we're super excited about those things, and I really appreciate everybody coming along for the ride. So until next week, we will see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Did you know that you are a hero? You are a hero. Did you know that your life is a guiding light, helping many precious souls to fulfill